Chapter 95 Vidisha Eye Camp. The first operation was performed on 19th January 1969. During the camp, Gurudev's health took a downward turn once again. During a day, the coughing would cease hardly for a few hours. Just a couple of steps would make him breathless. Yet he kept on giving detailed instructions based on thorough knowledge of the camp. Whenever he felt better, he would visit the stores, the kitchen and the wards and bestow his kindness and grace on the suffering patients. Once, during an attack of cough, cold and breathlessness, the nasal discharge was constricting his breathing. Instead of using a handkerchief, he asked for a plastic bowl and let the discharge drop in the cup like a small stream. A devotee who was unable to bear this got up and wiped off Gurudev's nose with a kerchief. Pujya Shri joked, "What have you done? You have stopped the nicely flowing Abhishek." Even the choking discharge appeared to him as Abhishek. This was the extent of his mental serenity. As previously predicted by him, the 18th and the last eye camp in his physical presence concluded with 4,000 operations. This resembled the 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, which starts with Arjun Vishad Yoga and concludes with 18 chapters. The Manav Seva Gita of Gurudev began with the first eye camp at Chitrakoot, organized for the benefit of Kanakba and Tanna family, and reached the 18th number conducted in Gurudev's physical presence. Pujya Shri explained the new meaning of yagna. He said, "True yagna consists of serving those afflicted by natural calamities or on account of sufferings to atone for their past deeds. The mantra for the yagna is God resides in the hearts of the humble poor, and the ahuti, services rendered in such a yagna, results in the fragrance of true self-satisfaction." From Vidisha, he came to Bombay via Pushkar. He said in Ram Mahal, "Till now I saw others weeping, though I did not weep. Now I do not know why. Yet I am weeping. Am I afraid of death or of being separated from you all? I could see your tears, yet none can see mine. Above all, my heart cries out for the nation. If this narrow provincial mentality continues, our nation will disintegrate, and with that our ancient culture will be destroyed. Our culture has been under attack many a time in the past, and we have undergone sufferings and given supreme sacrifices to preserve it. These efforts of ours are recorded in history. If one really wishes to serve the nation, why should he hanker after titles? If you do your duty faithfully and with dedication, the posts and the titles will follow you and not the other way around." Devotees took him to Devlali for rest, but instead of improving, his health deteriorated further. Insomnia and fainting spells were added to the long lists of illnesses, such as gas, asthma, cough, and nausea. Once, when it took more time for him to come out of the fainting spell, Dr. Nathwani was called to Devlali, and with the consent of everyone, the doctor arranged to shift him to Bhatia Hospital for treatment, where he was admitted in a special room. Jai Bhagwan. Chapter 96. Gurudev continues his healing mission. The hospital life began from 15th April. Except a couple of doctors, none was allowed inside to visit Gurudev. Dr. Samani started treatment after investigations such as X-rays, cardiogram, etc. And medications and injections were prescribed to give relief and recovery. He had to be given oxygen at hourly intervals for 5 to 10 minutes. Dharamshi Bhai, aged about 45 minutes, was suffering from the fatal illness of pancreas, and the operation had failed. Doctors opined that the case was hopeless and advised that the necessary property documents should be executed. He was in the room just adjacent to Gurudev. Every day and hour of his life was full of pain and suffering. The documents as advised were executed, and now all waited for the end. His mother came to know that Gurudev was in the next room. She approached him with a glimmer of hope and said, "Though the doctors have given the verdict, and I know that the boy cannot survive, I have no other expectation but for him to have darshan of Gurudev, so that his death may be sanctified. If Maharaj permits, I will bring the boy here on a stretcher." I explained, "Ma, Gurudev's condition is serious. Except the doctors, no one is allowed in his room. They have further warned not to give him any sad or shocking news." "What can I do?" She went away disappointed. Next day she came again and said, "Bain, open the door just a crack. I will have Maharaj Shri's darshan and spread my hands on my son's body." That did it. No sooner these words were spoken, though ever so softly, and outside the closed doors of the room, yet a mother's sentiment reached Gurudev behind closed doors. He said, "Damu, who is there? Let him come in." Maji, who never expected such sublime grace, was overcome with emotions, and stood devoutly in the door with folded hands and wept. Gurudev asked in a voice full of compassion, "Ma, what is the matter? Why are you crying?" And he sat up in bed. I explained briefly. Before my narrative was over, he asked Ramesh, who was present at his bedside, "Come on, lift me up, we must go with Ma." When Ramesh Bhai carried him to Dharamshi Bhai's bedside, he said, "That's enough, now release me." And he stood near Dharamshi Bhai. The anemic, weak and emaciated patient greeted him with trembling hands, folded in supplication. Pujya placed a loving hand on him and repeated 3 times, "You will surely get well." On that occasion, it seemed that the Sanjeevani Shakti, power of restoration of life, was flowing through his speech, gaze, and his entire being. He stayed there for a minute and then said, "Let us return," and briskly walked back to his room. Next day, early in the morning, Dr. Samani said, "Baba, what kind of miracle did you perform yesterday on my patient next door? Now he is improving and seems sure to survive." Then he added, "How strange. Here we are, waiting with bated breath, worried about your health, and you possess powers to cure a last-stage patient without any medication. So many devotees are worried about your health. Why don't you use these powers on yourself?" He smiled in reply, "All of you here are here to look after me." Then added softly, "Samani, Rog can be cured, but Bhog, afflictions of others, taken on his own self for their relief, have to be borne with fortitude. All of you can help in bearing them, that is all." After some days, Dharamshi Bhai went home fully cured. The news spread throughout the hospital, and everyone wished their relatives to be cured. But none could get inside Gurudev's room. The ban applied to common people, while the same was not the case with doctors and nurses. They came on one pretext or the other and wondered, can this man effect a miracle cure? With dangling stethoscopes and wondering minds, they came offering pranam and left. Often Pujya recited a couplet by poet Keshav, meaning the confused. Keshav wonders as to how Shiva, whose only wealth is a piece of tiger skin and an old bull, and who subsists by begging from others, can give so much wealth to his supplicant devotees who throng at his doorstep. How appropriately this couplet applied to Pujya Shri. Now it was impossible to stay in the hospital, and since he had to be at the foundation ceremony of Anantpur Hospital, Gurudev discontinued the treatment and, despite objections from devotees, left for Anantpur. The heat and dust of Anandpur worsened his health. He had unprecedented cough and asthma, and doctors there were unable to help. Let alone solid. He could not take even liquid food. Devkaran Bhai and Dr. Nathwani were called to Vidisha. Next day, on being shifted to Bombay, things came under control. Rajasthan was in the grip of famine, and having sent all to the famine site, at the insistence of devotees, Gurudev agreed to stay in Bangalore. Before his departure, he addressed the devotees. Do not run after mere learning, else you will be confused. Surrender and bhajan are the only essential ingredients for devotion. None can advance merely by the worldly path. The spiritual path, though difficult, is the only path. Mala, telling of beads, going to temples and namaskar before idols, if not accompanied by pure conduct, are mere rituals and cannot elevate us. If one cannot be of help to others, his life is worthless. Such a one merely sees God in temples, but God does not see him. Our country boasts of spirituality, yet there is not even one sadhu who can save it from ruin. The national ills are cause of my illness and nothing else. One lady asked, why can we not see a yogi's powers even when his body is operated upon? Gurudev replied, yogic powers permeate and pulsate through the yogi's veins. I will explain by an example. If you take out an eye, it cannot see since it lacks the element of sight. The lady asked, are the things realized by nerves? Gujrati said, now you have understood. The power permeates due to the presence of Chetna, the life force. The lady asked again, where does the power go on death? He asked, who dies when a man dies? The body, was the reply. How can you say that? The body is right there, with all the organs intact. The lady guessed again, the soul. Pujya ended her problem. He whom you consider dead is the life force. With its departure, the power also goes away. Another devotee asked, do the Mahatmas experience physical pain? Gurudev replied, the body suffers, therefore even a Mahatma gets affected by it. Devotee, how so? The soul is said to be beyond suffering. Pujya Shri, that is correct. Yet as the water rises in the form of waves by contact with the wind, and as the iron gets affected by magnet, so similarly, so long as the soul is related to the body, the experience of pain is bound to be there. On another topic, he had said, in my life, I have not done three things. I did not initiate disciples, they initiated themselves. I did not take medicines, you gave it to me. And I have not done bhajan. It happens on its own by concentrated and unwavering mind. When one realizes the presence of God in all beings, then the self-surrender happens on its own. The body rises as it is bidden and works automatically like a machine. Then, looking at Vedbhai, he said, never forget the principle of seeing God in all. Serve the needy and attain your salvation. Never be unjust or partial to anybody. Non-violence, celibacy, non-accumulation and non-stealing are principles of Ved Bhagwan. Observing Pujyashri's health, Vedbhai broke down. Gurudev smiled. Why do you cry for this mortal body? Ved Bhagwan, look at the wall, not at the painting on it. The picture changes, yet the wall remains the same. Try to understand that the element of soul, which is immortal. Truly, if words fly upwards and the thoughts remain below, words without thoughts never go to heaven. William Shakespeare. Jai Bhagwan.
Chapter 97. The Protection of Devotees. In Bangalore, a lady came for darshan with full faith and devotion. Her face looked sad and in pain due to illness. Placing an empty bottle before Gurudev, she said, "You are the only person who can relieve my agony and suffering. Please sanctify the water in the bottle and make it potent to cure my illness with mantra." Pujya Shri smiled and made a sign for her to place the bottle in front of him. She did so and went away after offering pranam. After her departure, Gurudev said, "That lady has terminal TB. She believes that if she drinks the water sanctified by me, she will recover from her illness. Now let me show you what I can do." I said, "Oh God, I know nothing. These people do not believe it. You know why people are sad. They make mistakes according to their nature. Why trouble them? Please forgive them, God. This is the only mantra that I know of, that people drink the water and get cured." Then he got the bottle, filled with water, and 3 inches of space at the top was left empty for the particles to get affected. Then he said, "Now come on, all of you, repeat with me. I know nothing. These people." He chanted the above seemingly meaningless mantra about 4 to 5 times, and while people all around were busy laughing, thus having diverted their attention, he took off his glasses and looked at the bottle with a steady, piercing gaze. "Now close the bottle and give it to the lady." Patients were treated in this manner, in accordance with their faith and belief. I have seen hundreds of them taking water thus sanctified and getting really cured. He used to say, "Sadhu is public property, and even his body belongs to the needy of our nation." His illness was strange. During a particular period, while he was suffering from acute cough, asthma, and fever, and yet if there was an important meeting or discussion, he could cast off his illness and spend as long as 3 hours sitting up giving forceful pravachan without a shadow of ill effect or a single cough. But afterwards, he would revert once again to his former condition. At an appropriate moment, I asked, "Why so much suffering for a master yogi who commands all siddhis?" He replied, "When people are too much oppressed by their suffering, they approach me as a last resort. I am saddened by their afflictions, which are results of their past deeds of this or past births, and therefore they have got to be borne by one way of atonement. Someone can take over and relieve them. Thus either they suffer, or if I take over, then I suffer. These illnesses are of various kinds. Some are curable by mere blessings, while some last for 6 months. A few of them are such that they can depart only with their body. If I agree to bear them on their behalf, with the grace of God, the period of suffering can be shortened. But it is certain that this resultant of their past cruel deeds has got to be borne and suffering for expiation of sins." Now everything became clear to me. During the Lanka war, Shri Ram shielded Vibhishan from the invincible Shakti which was sure to kill him. But when Shri Ram took it upon himself, he too had to undergo pain for some time. Else, who would believe in its power? Thus, Gurudev bore the ills of others for a shorter duration and called them bhogs, bearing, and not rogue, disease. Thus, it has been truly said, "In their afflictions the Lord was afflicted." Jai Bhagwan.
Sarve Sukhina Santu, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukhamapnuyat.